I'm Kendall Cabe. Times2 Technology is my company. I have a business partner, Richard Dale, who doesn't come to this one, but you may have seen him at Palatine. We're basically a Joomla shop. We founded it that way. We got tired of working for somebody else and said, let's go to business together. And we've been doing Joomla. I had a couple of clients we played with in 1.0, but most of our stuff started in 1.5. But we're very much into it. That's why we wanted to continue this group down here. And when we had the opportunity, Dennis and I and several others said, okay, we got to restart this. The original was at DePaul with Danny Middleman, but Danny had triplets. His wife did, sorry. His wife had triplets, and now he's having to help take care of them. He was hoping to be here tonight, but the kids had doctor's appointments today, and he couldn't get out of it. But he had gotten us in at DePaul, and we had a good time over there up through about April, and then we had to shift and find a new spot, which is here at TechNexus, and we want to thank them for getting us in here as well. But for now, let's take a look at Joomla 3.0. We're going to take about 10 minutes. We will look at a few screenshots of it, dig in the back end a little bit. I actually have it set up on the internet, so we'll take a look at it. We're going to, talk about it a little bit. Robin, see if you can slide that way. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So we're going to talk about a little bit some of the new features, what some of the programming features are. Should you upgrade? So let's just take a look at Joomla 3.0 itself. It is the next Joomla software series. So your first series was Joomla 1.5, then it was the 1.6, 1.7, 2.5 series. Now it will be 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, 3.5, whatever they decide to release. We're looking at 3.0 being out this week. They just had 2 major bug squashing days the last 2 Saturdays. So they've squashed a heck of a lot of bugs, and they're almost ready to put out the stable version, 3.0.0. 3.1 will come out March 2013 or thereabouts. 3.5 or 3.2, I've seen conflicting versions, will come out sometime around September. And then, trust me, I don't know what's going on with that. But I saw it in Andrew's presentation, so I'm not sure what's happening. And then he mentioned in March of 2014 would be 3.5. Anyway, 3.5 will be the next long-term support release. 2.5 is the current long-term support release. The stability of the software in 3.0 will be about the same stability as 2.5 because a lot of stuff didn't change in the underlying programming. It's still based on more of 2.5 than anything brand new. But they fixed a lot of stuff and they added a lot of new UI design. So that's where you're going to see a lot of changes in 3.0. Now compared to 2.5, 3.0 will be stable enough to use with basically core sites. It's for early adopters, developers that need to get their stuff updated for 3.5 basically. The extensions you maybe want to run may not be available until 3.5. Some of the extension developers have said they're not going to waste their time right now. They're going to work on it 3.0, 3.1, and then have it absolutely stable, ready to go for 3.5. That's about a year from now. So that's their choice. They may lose clients over it, they may not, but that's what most people have said, and even Joomla itself has said 3.0 will be for the early adopters, the developers, the people that are more experienced users that can handle problems. It's not for the brand new person that's never used Joomla. That's 2.5. They're saying, recommending to stick with 2.5 for most of the existing sites and then shift to 3.5 when it comes out. Any new sites, they say, probably 2.5 or 3.0 if you're not using any external extensions. It should be good enough. Support for 2.5 will run into 2014. So we have about a year and a half left of support on 2.5. Now, 1.5 to 3x. Didn't get any easier. Still as bad as it was from going 1.5 to 2.5. It is still a migration. You don't have to go from 1.5 to 2.5 then to 3.0. You can go from
2.5 to 3.0 to
2.5 to 3.0 is a standard upgrade. It'll be should be a one-click upgrade if your extensions are ready, and we'll get to that at the end.
They will still have 1.5.
Oh yeah, I got a few. Working on them, but they're just kind of off to the side because they're not important sites. So, yeah.
far as I understand, there will be no 2.5 to 3.0 one-click update.
Well, they've said that, but then other people have said, a lot of people bitching about the 1.5 to 2.5 process, the pain in the ass it is.
There's a new Joomla update component that will allow you to do an upgrade from 2.5 to 3.0. It won't be a migration, supposedly.
Right. But what I've been understanding is sort of like what you were saying. If you have a 2.5 site,
yeah.
3.0 comes out, the upgrade button is not going to say upgrade to 3.0.
Correct.
That will come later
when 3.5 is out stable, but you will be able to upgrade to 3.0 if you want to. You have to change a setting within the Joomla upgrade component to be able to see the 3.0 and 3.1 updates. Okay. 3.0 and 3.1 are actual short-term support releases, so they will go away after 6 months anyway. So if you're going to do anything with 3x, wait till 3.5 anyway. Or at least get in and play around with 3.0 on a test site so you understand how it works and you see the differences, especially if you have to train your clients, because you need to know that there are slight differences, but everything's still there. I mean, it looks better, but everything is still there. It's still understandable how to find it. So there's not a huge learning curve difference to train somebody from 2.5 to 3.0. 1.5 will go end of life shortly after 3.0 is released. It is already end of life as far as changes and updates. The only thing that were being done are security releases. So as soon as 3.0 comes out, 1.5 will go end of life. You'll start seeing everything dropping off the JED. There may be some companies that will give you some kind of support that you pay them for to keep your 1.5 site going.
Yeah,
there's several that are actually putting stuff out right now. But the question is, unless you've got a site that's really, really, really involved, why bother? You should probably be looking already at doing it. You should have been for the last 6 months to a year anyway. So it's something you want to actually look into very heavily to find out about that. So what's new? If you don't know, back about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, they split the Joomla CMS from the platform. So there's now two components. There's a platform, which is effectively the underlying libraries. It's what Joomla calls to access data and all kinds of stuff like that. The CMS sits on top of the platform. So in the new version, it will be platform 12.2 is the version we will be actually putting in 3.0. And then the CMS sitting on top of that will be 3.0.0. There are mobile enhancements. They really worked on making the standard templates be very mobile available. Several of the new templates are actually responsively built, and they're using Twitter Bootstrap, which we'll talk about too, which is front end and back end. Templates are now built, and a lot of the UI interface is now built around the Twitter Bootstrap with the template called ISIS is a Twitter Bootstrap template for the back end. Protostar, I think is what it's called, is the one for the front end. That is the example template that is based on Twitter Bootstrap. So if you want to learn how Twitter Bootstrap works and how you handle it and how you build your own around it, utilizing the Bootstrap framework, you can look at ISIS for the back end and Protostar for the front end. There's also a new, shouldn't say new installer, I meant to add installer workflow. What that is giving us is, instead of 6 steps, it's now 3. You basically have 3 screens in the installer. It's very quick, it's very fast, it's very easy to do. All the information is laid out much nicer. You start out with the site information, you start out with the database information, you end up with a couple other things right at the end, which basically gives you a review of what you just set up. You hit install, it runs, it's done. You remove the install directory and you're finished. It's actually faster than it was in 2.5 and 1.5 to actually do an installation. They just made it easier, and it actually looks a lot nicer as well. We'll look at some screenshots here in a second on that. Jquery is another JavaScript library. MooTools is the base for Joomla right now. MooTools will be going away at some point. They're getting rid of it altogether because it didn't really keep up. Jquery is the one that everybody around the world has basically jumped on as a standard. So we now have Jquery will be included in the core of Joomla. You no longer have to add your own version.
Is no conflict going to be built into it?
I don't know.
I think it is.
I assume it is, because some extensions will require MooTools, some extensions will use jQuery. You may even have a choice to not even load MooTools at all.
Should we consider this a bad sign for jQuery?
Should we consider it a bad sign for MooTools? Yeah. Or you mean jQuery because Joomla's jumping on board? No. I find it interesting because with jQuery just actually removed the GPL license off of their software. So it's interesting, but their actual license is still compatible with the GPL. So Joomla should not have a problem with it, but I haven't seen any chatter about it yet, so somebody's obviously going to bring it up. But that just happened in the last month or less. But nobody brought it up, so obviously they've done the legal stuff, so it should not be a problem. They had issues with jQuery and Twitter going into the Joomla core because of licensing, but I think they've resolved it all because they're going to release it. So there's a new language installer. You can now actually install languages directly from the back end of the site. You no longer have to go to the Joomla website and download the language you want to install. So if you want to install French, Spanish, whatever, you can do it directly from the back end of Joomla.
For the core Joomla.
This is for anything that uses languages. You're basically installing a language pack into Joomla. So if another product uses it, it now has access to that once you install it. That's how you had to do it before anyway. You had to install the language into the system before you could actually utilize it. But Joomfish wouldn't even see it. Any of the other translators wouldn't even see it if it wasn't installed. And then there are now, if you want to look at it, there are now multiple types of sample data. They've actually created 5 packets of sample data that you can install when you install Joomla 3.0. There's a blog, there's a brochure site, there's the standard, we give you one page of information, that's it. There's a how to learn about Joomla, and then there's one other one, I can't remember what it is. But there's 5 different sets of sample data now. And they're all, most of them are actually all translated into most of the languages that Joomla actually supports. So those are actually available too. So requirements for Joomla did change. You need to make sure you're running PHP 5.3, and you need to make sure you're running at least MySQL 5.1. The NODB is normally going to be installed on most systems that are running this version of MySQL, so you really don't have to worry about it. But if you run into problems, you need to ask your hosting provider if they actually support that. It's a driver for MySQL or something that is needed. Now the big question, should I migrate or upgrade? If you're on Joomla 1.5, you should migrate to Joomla 2.5 if you're using anything other than core products. If you're only using core products, you should be able to go straight to 3.0 if you want to. It is a migration. It's not a simple, you can't push a button and get there. You will have to almost basically rebuild your system. You're either going to use JUpgrade or a product called SPUpgrade or something else to do manual upgrades. But there is no direct path to go from 1.5 to either 2.5 or 3.0. Yep.
How do you define core products?
Anything that you don't install. If you install anything in your system, with the exception of JCE or Akiba or something like that, anything that is not, that does not come with Joomla as default is considered non-core. So anything that the Joomla project did not give you is something that...
So theoretically, if you uninstall your non-core products, can you do an FTP?
No, you still have to do the migration because the database structure has changed. Some of the user stuff has changed, so it does have to do some conversion to get your content over. If you have no third-party extensions is a better way to put it besides core. If you have no third-party extensions, you may be able to run like JUpgrade or SPUpgrade very quickly and get everything over. Then you may be able to reinstall the other stuff, and there may be a manual migration to get that data from one to the other. Like I know EasyBlog is a manual migration. If you get both of them on the same version, you copy the tables, you run a little script, and it's done. So some of them can be easy, some of them can be very difficult. The more complex the product, the more complex the migration. Now, if you're on 2.5, stay put. There is honestly no reason to go to 3.0. 3.5 is where you should be looking at the next version. 2.5 is stable. It will be stable. It will be supported through 2014. There will be feature releases up through this week. And then there will be basically bug fixes and security fixes from now until its end of life, which will be either March or September of 2014. So there's no reason for you to rush out and go take a look at going straight to 3.0 unless you really want to be that early adopter or that person that just says, okay, I want to go to 3.0. So right now I'm going to pop out of here so we can actually go take a look at everything. So this is going to be a little more interesting because, oh great, okay. All right, so let's go jump right over here. This is something you can't see. Okay, let me flip this real quick. All right, so what you're looking at here is the sample data with the blog layout with Protostar. This is the Twitter Bootstrap template for Joomla 3.0. You can see a little bit of the differences, and what you'll notice mostly is that everything kind of has a standard look to it. If you compare it to the old Joomla templates, even some of the old templates didn't really always have a good standard feel to it. Because we're using the Bootstrap framework, it's something that you'll maybe be able to tell that something's using it, but if the designer's good enough, you'll never be able to tell it's actually running a Joomla Bootstrap template. That was one of the things everybody's like, no, Bootstrap, everything looks the same. But if you look at some of the examples that have been put out since, you can't tell that they're all running the Bootstrap template. If the person doesn't take the time to design it properly, then yeah, it's going to look like every other Bootstrap template that's out there because they didn't take the time to make it not look like it. So let's just pop in the back end real quick because this is where more of the changes actually show up. As you can see, this is also changed. There are, forgot your username, forgot your password, language defaults here. That's the new back end. This is running ISIS. This is the new Twitter Bootstrap-based Joomla backend template. You can see all the menus are still across the top, but then they also give you this left-hand side. The global configuration now has global configuration for absolutely everything. So if you're looking for a configuration for the banner program, it's right here. Anything to do with configuring a component or anything in the back end will be under global configuration. As far as the configuration options you normally see available, not stuff that's in the program itself, but those things that like you had options, the option areas for like the article manager, well, that's right here. So instead of having to go to article manager, hitting the options button, going there and finding it, now everything's under global config. So anything that goes with configuring those inside Joomla is right here now. Anything that has to do with the functioning of that program is still in that particular program. So like components, if I want to go find out and add new banner stuff, it's all over here. There is now also drag and drop ordering. So if you want to change the order, you can basically pick it up. If I had ordering set properly, then I can take this and I can move it around. So they've added drag and drop ordering. That'll help quite a bit with people that have to order a lot of articles. Makes it so much easier. There's a lot of stuff like enabled. Do you want it featured? You know, you can disable stuff the same way. Very similar. It's got the same look and feel. A lot of people are starting to upgrade their components as well, their extensions, to actually utilize the same framework so that things will actually start looking very standard in the back end. So when a save button is there, you know it's a save and not something else. It's going to look very nice. Other changes, here's your article window. It's about the article now, about the content. It's not about everything else under the sun. Anything that was in the right column before is now up here in the top. So if you want article permissions, it's there. The article options are here now. You can see they've actually got it where it's kind of a nicer feel to it. It's a little more, I'd say a little more polished. I'm on a small screen, so it's kind of, it does have a problem when you're on a smaller screen. but that's HTML in general will do that. So they've kind of pulled all this stuff together for you.
Hey, have you messed around with those, those image
Not yet.
things?
In theory, yes, I have. I played with it because it was in 2.5. I did actually play with it. You can actually utilize these to do an image, kind of like you do on used to do on a category. You can actually set an intro image, which will show up in the intro text on like a blog entry. So you can do that. They also have some of this link stuff. And you can also change the placement of those images by editing the layout for that particular setup. So if you're editing an article, you can actually kind of move that picture around. But it's a picture that gets associated with that article. It's not one you insert in the article yourself. It's one that basically gets inserted for you. So it's kind of, WordPress kind of does that, and it kind of mimics that in a way. Could be some more improvements to it, but right now it's there. Some people wanted it. They programmed it, and it got put in. So
Yeah, it's pretty good. I use it on 2.5.
Yeah.
You have a smaller image and a bigger image.
Yep.
So all of your
It helps.
image will be standard looking.
Yeah.
So it'll automatically resize it?
You have to upload 2 images.
Yeah, the intro image and the full article image.
Gotcha.
So it's 2 different images. But it does take care of the placement for you. So you can actually move it around a little bit because you can change the floating. You can either make it show up on the left side or the right side. And as I said, if you really want to get into figuring out where the image shows up, you can actually change the entire article layout yourself. You can just edit the, do an override in your template and just change it all. So it is possible to even do that. If you want to get carried away with it, you can do that.
Does it change if we have an image?
Yes, it does. This is something that allows you to tack in the image. Yeah.
Precise for you.
Yep.
But it's very convenient if you want to have an introduction. It's just an image and
Correct.
And some.
You don't actually have to put your own image in. You just throw it in and it's there. Yeah. That is, it kind of makes it nice. I would probably use it more for the intro than I would the full article, because it's, for that reason, it gives you a place to put an image that's easy to maintain.
Can you do that with menus?
No, it's on the article itself.
It's very convenient for other components that you can take advantage of it.
Yeah. So in here again, you've got all the same options you had before. Archiving, checking in and out, trashing, all the other pieces that are here. The new is over here if you want to create new. You also have save, save, close, save new. They did modify this. It was actually all going to be under the save button, but they had a lot of feedback over it, and people said it just disappears too much. So we want to kind of get rid of it. We want to keep it sort of they're completely separate. I liked where they were going, but I think it was too much of a change right at the beginning. Your extension stuff is still in the same place. Components, content, menus, users, system. Everything is basically where it was in 2.5. You see the stuff that was in the top right before is now in the bottom left. Gives you a list of how many visitors on your site, how many admins, messages you have. There's a log out thing down here for the user. There's view site to view the front end of the site, and then your user stuff is in the top right. You can also edit. That wasn't what I thought it was. But you can get it to pop up to the side up there as well. So if you can't find it down here in the bottom, you just click on the title up here. It takes you out. So as far as that goes, does anybody have any questions? Because we need to kind of move on. Took up a little more time than I wanted to. If you want to know any more, catch me after we get done with everything else, and I'll be happy to let you play around and show it. It's a dev site anyway. So if you want to play around while we're here, that's fine.